Hi, and welcome to The Lamp in the Library. I'm Graham.
I'm Kim.
And today we're going to be talking about a lost Christmas tradition. Now, we're all familiar with A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, which prominently features ghosts. But were you aware that in the 19th century and early 20th century, there was a Christmas tradition of reading ghost stories on Christmas Eve? Well, the independent publisher Biblioasis, which is based out of Guelph, Ontario, Canada, is attempting to revive this tradition. So this is actually a Charles Dickens story right here. It's called The Signalman. It is a ghost story that he wrote. And this is marketed as a ghost story for Christmas. I'll just read what it says on the back of this. It's revive a spooky old Christmas tradition. Reading a ghost story on Christmas Eve was once as much a part of traditional Christmas celebrations as turkey, eggnog, and Santa Claus. So Biblioasis and Seth, who is a Canadian cartoonist, graphic novelist, probably best known for his semi-autobiographical book, It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken. He's also done Clyde Fann's Belucaville. Very well-known Canadian cartoonist, and he is decorating the cover art and has some beautiful illustrations in all of these. So this is a really great initiative by this publisher and by Seth to revive this lost Christmas tradition. So what we did for A Lamp in the Library, I believe that Biblioasis publishes 3 of these ghost stories, Christmas ghost stories, every year. So we went ahead and purchased the 2019 and 2020 ghost stories, and we read them all. And now we're going to tell you what we think of them, which ones we thought were the best. So we're going to do our top 3 for each of us, and let's talk about them.
Yeah, so first I'll just share all the titles they released in 2019 and this year. So we have The Story of a Disappearance and an Appearance by M.R. James. We have The Sundial by R.H. Malden. The Old Nurse's Story by Elizabeth Gaskell, which most people would be familiar with her work North and South. The Morgan Trust by R. Bridgeman. The Apple Tree by Daphne du Maurier, which most people are probably most familiar with her work Rebecca, which is seeing a bit of a revival this year too. And then lastly, The Open Door by Mrs. Oliphant. So Graham, out of these 6 titles, which takes spot number 3 for you?
So I really enjoyed this story, The Sundial by R.H. Malden, and I liked this one because it was the scariest, the straight up scariest of the ghost stories that we read. Nail-bitingly scary.
Yeah.
So, some of them are spooky, some of them are sad, haunting, but this one was run for your life scary. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was very good, yeah.
Okay, what's the bottom of the pile for you?
Well, my number 3 choice, they had a hard time willowing them down because they're all really good, but I decided to put in number 3, The Morgan Trust, which is by R. Bridgeman. And what I really enjoyed about this story is that it had a real bittersweet quality, and I would say even leans more into the sweet, which I really enjoyed for a flavor of a ghost story. And it's the one where I most would like to visit the haunted realm that exists within the story. What's your number 2?
I chose The Old Nurse's Story by Elizabeth Gaskell for my number 2, and I really like this one because it kind of the theme was the mistakes that you make in the past. They stay with you and they continue to haunt you. And it was just a really satisfying ghost story. Very haunting, very sad, but really a good one. So what's your number 2?
Actually, my number 2 is the same story.
Oh.
I really enjoyed this one as well. I was pretty hooked early on into it, and I wanted to know what's the mystery behind what's going on and this family history, what's happening. And I really enjoyed that this story actually prominently features a certain flora that's associated with Christmas. So it sort of had that fun Christmas element to it. Now, Graham, number 1.
So my number 1 is actually your choice for number 3. It's
yeah.
the Morgan Trust by our Bridgeman, and I also like that this one had a kind of a melancholy hopefulness to it. So it was different from all the other ones. You know, ghost stories they're haunting, they can be sad, they can be spooky, they can be scary, but this one it had a more hopeful flavor to it. So you know, it had a positive spin, I suppose. You know, it was sad in its own way, because you're dealing with, you know, death and the afterlife usually when you're talking about ghost stories. But yeah, it had a hopeful spin to it. So like you said, it's the one where you'd like to live in that kind of supernatural realm. Yeah, really enjoyable.
Well, my number 1 is The Apple Tree by Daphne du Maurier, and I really enjoyed this one. It's more of a psychological horror, and I really enjoyed that part of the haunting is through a plant, the thus named apple tree, and that the way the story unravels is, you know, there's a character who's narrating the story, but as it goes on, you start to really understand that his view of things, and especially his view of people, is not necessarily accurate, and I really just thought it was a really interesting take. If you like Daphne du Maurier's work, if you liked Rebecca, I think you'd probably really like this one, and I really loved the end of this story.
Yeah, it did have a good ending.
And can I just give another special shout out? So they're all really great. I think that anyone who buys the collection will be very happy. But I really wanted to give a special shout out to the story of a disappearance and an appearance, because it was sort of the most fun in a way of all of them, because at the end of it, when you closed it, I was left being like, whoa, I'm not even quite sure what happened. And you had to unravel a bit in your mind, and it was, I guess in some ways, the most mysterious, because you're like, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah, I mean, like, when you're dealing with the supernatural, you're dealing with the unknown, right? So it makes sense that, you know, maybe you don't fully comprehend what you've read.
That
makes
true.
sense.
Yeah.
But this is a really fun initiative that Seth and Biblioasis are doing every year, and I think everyone should support this initiative, revive this lost Christmas tradition. And these are the perfect length,
Yes.
you know, to either read in a single sitting, or even better, read to a group of people on Christmas Eve in front of that roaring fire. So yeah, we have links at the bottom to the Biblioasis Christmas Ghost Stories. So do check them out. I think it's a really fun tradition, and we are definitely going to be continuing it in future. So thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel down below and hit the bell so you always know when we have a new episode. We'll be back next week sharing some reviews. Graham recently finished Jeff Vandermeer's
Peculiar Peril.
yeah, so he'll be reviewing that one, and I'll be sharing a review of a book about Fred Rogers. So make sure to tune in for that.
Keep well.
Keep reading.